Namaste. Mm. I call in the spirit of Dakini, the sky dancers. I call in the Dakini and Daka lineages, the awakened feminine, the awakened masculine lineages, to support us in our conversation today about awakening the same in you. How do you awaken true feminine and the true masculine in you? What are practices that are worthy of your time, your dedication? How do you call a more total experience of yourself into the moment? How do you drop beneath the surface? How do you turn inwards? So there was a time on earth long ago. It was almost the time before time, when humans existed without concept of time as we have it today. And in that epoch, human beings could communicate easily with the stars, with the flowers, with everything. It wasn't so much focused on human. Your relationship was with life, not only in conversation with other humans. And for that to happen, the I of yourself needs to turn inward, because that's where the conversation happens. So if I'm talking to a human being, the conversation is external. I use words, they use words, we exchange words, perhaps we understand one another. Mostly, I think we often don't really get each other. Oftentimes, I've noticed with conversation, it's just a movement between my turn and your turn. I get to say something and you get to say something, if we're lucky. Sometimes we talk to people who just talk and talk and talk, and you're like, when someone is more in the child mind, let's say, and they're not aware of making space for another human being, then it's different. It's not really a conversation. Then it's more just what we might call holding space for someone's wounding or need to be seen or need to be heard. But when we were speaking with stars, that was a very different way of communion. It was a very different form of communion. And there came a time where that communion was taken away. It was either taken away externally, or we got so externally focused, we forgot how to talk to stars and many other beings. Remember, in the Nag Hammadi, the stars are the second layer of God, before the God. So the stars were seen as gods and goddesses. Very powerful beings, profound beings, but not as powerful as humans, because human beings are mortal and immortal, and stars are only immortal. And somehow our mortality calls in a power that immortality does not call. Interesting, I think. So there came a time where that communication was taken from us. where we no longer were able to communicate with stars. And in part, I think it's because we needed to start to learn to navigate this life ourselves. Not always take the guidance of the gods and the goddesses. And it's lovely to get their guidance. It's so difficult sometimes to make a choice. And it's wonderful when it works out, and when it doesn't work out, sometimes it has a grave consequence. And we can become very afraid of making choices. So we're constantly seeking the external advice. Some people do tarot, some people go to their parents, some people to a friend, some people to an advisor, some kind of counselor, to try and get some perspective and advice about the right decision to make. And it can become such a trauma for people that they freeze in that decision-making process. It becomes very difficult. What should I do? Which way should I go? So we seek that advice. And that had to close for a while so that we could start to seek our own choice. Because choice might be the most powerful quality in existence to mature you and to take you into yourself. It's a very important thing to make your own choices. I know it's can be very scary, as I've said, but it's really essential. And because guaranteed, and if you make choices, you're going to make ones that you don't like how they come out. You're gonna make choices that you're gonna go, oh, no, I really don't like that outcome. I don't like that outcome. And so we're seeking. But for your conversation with stars to return, the seeking energy needs to go inward. That's where the conversation happens. It's not an external conversation. It's an inner quality. It's an inner conversation. You need to turn the gaze inward. And you need to seek a different language. In the quantum physics, the language is mathematics. You cannot really understand quantum fully if you're not willing to explore higher levels of mathematics. And most people these days aren't even willing to explore the most fundamental mathematics, such as multiplication. They use a calculator. So people are destroying their capacity for the language of mathematics, which is the language of existence, because they refuse to even begin learning the basics. And so if you want to learn the language of stars, you have to learn a language beyond word. Not that stars can't use words, but it's not where they will land in your mind. So if you want to find the landing point of the language of stars, you have to find a different language. And there are quite a few different languages you could explore, but one that you're quite conversant on already is the language of image. Though we use it less and less, we're so reliant on word, but the word has replaced the image, and the image has replaced other things as well. But you have to go back to the image. That's one aspect of the language that I'm going to introduce to you tonight. Is if you want to converse with stars, take a step backwards or towards image. And so you could also just, to do this practically, instead of just theoretically, you can make a time, 5 or 10 minutes, where you go into a meditation and you begin to notice your thoughts, basic Buddhist meditation, noticing the thoughts, And instead of just noticing them, see if you can see the central thinking that's happening inside of you, and take the thinking and break it down into images. See the thoughts. This will be a good place for you to begin to practice learning how to speak to stars again. Mm. And this is also important if you're going to learn the conversation between the inner feminine and the inner masculine, because they have also their own language. But begin with this practice, and then we'll see what comes after in your conversation between the masculine and the feminine. Let me know how it goes. It's a little bit more difficult than it sounds, because our patterns are done. We've made such strong pathways into the word that it can take a bit of time to come back to thinking in images as a constant, as a pattern, as a way, as a primary, as a primacy. Yeah, so let me know how that goes for you. And if any of you have any luck with talking to the stars, I'd love to hear about it as well in the comments. Namaste. And may the force be with you.